We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
Welcome in, everybody, and happy Wednesday. This is Sports by the Book here at the South Point studio. A lot to get to today, a lot on the board. NBA is officially back. We've got one hockey game, and we've got some college football, of course. 2 college football games tonight, and then we will talk about some college football games coming up this weekend. Happy to be with you. I'm Alex White here alongside Kenny White. We will take you through a full hour, of course, the first hour with tonight's action. Before we get to that, we do have to bring up NBA is back. 2 games last night. Boston Celtics, man, trying to repeat, and they looked very impressive last night. The bigger news, though, is the Los Angeles Lakers. History was made. We did get to see LeBron James and Bronny James both on the court playing together in an official NBA game. I know you talked about it earlier. Meaningful to you and a feel-good moment, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Anytime that you can have a father-son relationship on the basketball court, what an amazing thing. I had it with my dad in softball, that we both played softball together on the same team, and at a high level too. I mean, it wasn't a rec league softball team. We played at a high level in softball, which was, a lot of fun to do. So I can.
And then your sons too.
Yeah, no, we did a father-son baseball stuff. In a tournament, which that was a lot of fun to do. Yeah, that it is, but. Yeah, this is definitely a new level. We talked about Gordie Howe, and was a legend in the NHL. He's definitely on the Mount Rushmore of NFL people, or NHL hockey players. Gordie Howe is. And he had 2 sons that played in the NHL, and they played in the same games together. Ken Griffey Jr., I forgot all about that till we talked about that yesterday, that they would be in attendance at the game last night. So that was really nice. Bronny is going to be, I'm sure, in the developmental league, and hopefully he can work his way into an NBA player. We'll see if that happens or not. JJ
Redick, I think that was a good move by him. So people were anticipating over and over when this would happen. First game of the year. And I know a lot has been said, and, LeBron James made this happen. It wasn't so organic, but at the same time, you have to appreciate how he is still in the league and dominating, and has the ability to be playing with his son. So it was really cool to see, and I'm glad that you brought up Gordie Howe. They did not on the broadcast, which I was shocked, but I remember reading about that because Gretzky has a book called 99 Hockey Stories, and he talks about that with Gordie Howe and his 2 sons. And it's interesting because then at that time when his sons were playing, then the helmets were mandated. but he was kind of grandfathered in and didn't have to. So that's a great book if you want some hockey history. But so now baseball, hockey, and basketball.
Yeah, everyday sports that we have going on in NBA is, NBA is a sport that it was the first sport I ever handicapped, that I went and did all the player ratings and handicapped the games and adjusted and was betting every morning. I would go down to the Fremont and they were putting up numbers. I didn't have to battle people at the Stardust and was betting at the Fremont. And then I would drive over to Santa Anita where I worked, and Bob Davis, who was the general manager, and Jeff Garrett, who was the sportsbook director. Now, mind you, I was just 21 years old. I started there at 20 years old in February, but this time it was October. I was actually legal, had a gaming card, and was making numbers. And at 21, they were looking at my numbers, getting them every morning, and shading on the board a half a point in the direction that I liked. And so that was pretty cool at 21, and I was getting paid minimum wage probably, and they were using my numbers on the board. And that's what got me years later to think I should have my own business and sell these numbers to sports books, and that's what I eventually did.
So question for you, would you consider basketball? I mean, I know it's tough right now with the NBA because we do have load management, and you have to be fully in it to know which player is not playing in certain games and take that into consideration for your lines. But the fact that there are 5 main players for each team, and then you probably have a bench rating, is that the easiest sport to start with people who are looking to do power ratings?
That's a great question, and I think that is probably the correct answer because, yes, there's less players to rate out and less players to keep track of. You just mentioned 5 starters, so you have 32 teams, I believe there's 160 players basically to keep track of. So that is much, much easier. Hockey, you have to worry about goalies. You got 4 lines, only 3 lines of defensemen though, because they like to play those defensemen as much as possible. That's how valuable a defenseman is. But the goalie is so valuable. So yeah, there's a lot to that. But I would agree. And maybe that's why I took on NBA as my first sport, because of that fact. And I started to realize I was losing 2 different ways. One, I was losing on teams I was betting they were playing back-to-back. So I started to do some numbers on back-to-back situations, and that's a real thing. So that's what I'm saying. Travel is really big in the NBA. The other thing I noticed I was losing on totals, I was losing on overs that there were no fouls being called and no free throws being shot. And then I was losing on unders where there was a ton of fouls and a lot of free throws being shot. So I started studying the NBA referees. And at the Hall of Fame dinner, someone was presenting for Chuck Sharp. Chuck Sharp was a famous NBA handicapper. And I was handicapping the NBA before I even knew Chuck did the NBA, I believe. But I knew Chuck as a kid because my dad, your grandfather, and Chuck were friends. They played softball together. Chuck was a great athlete too, and they played very competitive softball. So I had known Chuck. Now that I think about it, yeah, he came out to several of my games and practices as a young kid playing baseball in high school. So yeah, we knew him before that. So I guess I probably knew Chuck. Handicapped the NBA. I didn't know how good he was probably at that time, but handicapping it, figuring to myself where I was losing, what I needed to do extra work on was the referees. Now, at the Hall of Fame dinner, when they were introducing Chuck, cannot remember who the inductee, who was inducting him in, who was speaking. But when they were speaking, they said one thing Chuck did was follow the referees, and he found one referee. Does anyone know who that referee is? And I couldn't hold myself back, but I yelled Earl Strom, and the person was shocked and looked over my direction, and no one else in the entire place of 500 people knew, but I knew because I found Earl Strom. And Earl Strom was the best under referee in the history of basketball. His games, on average, 50 fouls were called. In his games, there was 25 fouls called, half the fouls. The clock continued to run. Nobody went to the free throw line. Average free throws attempted were 60 in an NBA game. In his, it was around 40. So there was less free throws, less fouls. Now the fouls he called, he loved to call charging. He loved to call 3 seconds, and he loved to call traveling. He called everything against the offense. So all of his games went under. 80% of his games went under. Jeff Garrett and I, when we were at the Fremont, would wait to see across the ticker 10 minutes before the game. And as soon as we saw Earl Strom's name, I would go running to the books downtown and get as much money under as we could on that game. Jeff would head to the back room and he would get the telephone accounts. I would bet the cash accounts, and I would come back, and then we'd cut it up on those games. And then years later, we realized Chuck Sharp had already bet under in the morning on that same game. So when I met with Chuck one day, I said, "How do you know Earl Strom?" And he looked at me and was very shocked that I would bring that up. So I said, "Did you go to high school with him?" I felt that might have been the case. He said, No, I've never met the man. I said, "Then how is it that every time he's at a game, you've already bet it under in the morning and we don't find out till the afternoon?" And he said, "I hired a private detective to follow him from city to city." And can you imagine, private detectives get paid very well, and you're paying them by the hour, and they're basically on call 24 hours a day for you and you're paying for their airline tickets to follow Earl Strom from city to city. So that's how good Earl Strom was. And I said, I don't think it was 80%, but I'm thinking it was at least 70%, maybe 75%. Earl Strom's games went under.
You just gave me an idea, because I was talking with Steve Cofield yesterday on air about Mountain West basketball. We're getting ready for college, and he is talking about how physical this conference has become, and talking about an SDSU and UNLV game last year where it was just so physical under the basket. The refs were kind of just like, let them play. And a lot of those games did go under last year with Mountain West. So maybe we can find certain conferences where that could work out to our benefit. Because I'm trying to think, you can't really follow refs in the NBA now, right? It's pretty even.
Well, what happened was this was back when there was only 2 referees in a game. So Earl Strom could dominate the game. He was the dean of the league, and he was one of the bosses. He was never a boss, but he was looked upon as one of the legends in the industry. And so with 2 referees, he dominated the game. When they went to 3, he no longer became a factor. Neither did Dick Bavetta, was an over referee for me. And I had a list of guys who were good, and they would win 60% of the time, whether it was under or over. But all of those edges went away as soon as they put in a 3rd referee. Everyone's trend went back to about even.
Oh, very interesting.
I quit following it, but it should be something that is followed, as in, Major League Baseball umpires. We had a great Major League Baseball umpire that we found. His name was Jeff Shylock. And and I found out years later, at the Golden Nugget pool, sitting next to a AAA umpire, and I was talking about John Shylock, it was his name. And I asked about John Shylock and told the guy that I bet all of his games over and on the visitor. He said, John Shylock can't call the curveball. Every time a guy throws a curveball, he calls it a ball. So pitchers know they can't throw many curves. They got to throw fastballs. And the hitters know the same thing, so they sit and look fastball. He says, as for the visitor covering, John's a controversial guy, and I would think that he likes to get booed, and that's why he makes more calls for the visitor than he does the home team. So I said he was one of the best. Earl Strom, John Shylock, both made me a lot of money, and that's something you have to have going for you in all sports. And I've kind of dropped it over the years. John Hirschbeck was a great under umpire, Major League Baseball, but now they've got more safeguards in place to make it equal for all umpires, with the strike zone and different things like that. But there's still trends out there for these guys, but they're no longer 70% winning trends.
Well, let's get into some NBA games today. I know that you do have a few plays, and you finished your power ratings and have your numbers ready to go. Number one team for you right now is the Boston Celtics, correct?
Yes, Boston. Well, I think in anyone's power ratings, they'd have to have the Boston Celtics.
I have heard the Nuggets as well.
Oh, well, the Nuggets do have a great team, and I have them number 3. The Indiana Pacers at number 2, 106.5. Memphis and Oklahoma City tied for 4th, 105.5. I didn't, after last night's game, I'm going to have to boost up the Celtics again because just to begin the season, they just looked so good. They just great players that are in their peaks of their career. These guys are getting better. So
Pacers is very interesting because here at the South Point, they do have future odds up to win the NBA championship or to win each conference. For the Pacers, 25-1 right now to win the Eastern Conference. Of course, that means they will have to face the Boston Celtics again, and that's who they ran into last year. But they are a good team, play fast, not a lot of defense. We'll see if they can improve that this year. But young team, and they did have a lot of injuries at the end of the season, in the postseason, which that's really what NBA is about, right? It's a battle of nutrition because it is such a long season. So having your full team there, I mean, we saw it with the Pacers and the Knicks last year.
No doubt about it. When you talk about a sport that, you have 5 starting players. So if you have 5 really good ones, you can be great. And if you have a strong bench, but you're right. Let's take the Clippers, for example. This is a basketball team that I have rated 98.5, but without Kawhi Leonard in the lineup, this lineup is going to be much, much weaker. He's worth so much, the betting line. It's ridiculous. It's almost 7 points, and I hate to have one player worth that much, but that's about what he's worth. I'm going to be a little more conservative with that say the other players step up and play better and say he's worth about 4.5, 5 points, but really I could make a case for him being worth 7.
Curious to see what happens with the Clippers this year. They were a pretty dominant team last year. Of course, they did trade Paul George to the Sixers to play there with Embiid. But let's talk about the games on the board. We'll kind of go rapid fire here. The Pacers are playing on the road today against Detroit. They're a 5-point favorite on the road. Total moved up a little bit from 234 to 235.
Yeah, and I made this game a little higher. I made the Pacers 9 in the game, and that's taken off 20% as well. I have an 11.5-point difference between the two teams. But Detroit played well last year, and again, I talk about NBA a lot, is the same as the NFL or college football. Any sport, home value, all it is the crowd being into the game, being very loud, and kind of maybe intimidating the referees to call more fouls against that visiting team. In these situations where the visitor is way better, I don't like to give home value. Now, this being the opening game of the year, I did take points off, and maybe I shouldn't have because the fans in Detroit have high expectations and they think their team's going to be very good. And this happens in cities when one team is good. The other teams work a little bit harder because they don't want to be the laughingstock of the city. So the Detroit Tigers, they made a big run. Now you got the Tigers, the Lions playing well. I think you'll see the Pistons, the players work that much harder to be good. So I think there'll be some value maybe betting them because they could get undervalued. I'm going to look at their rating and maybe raise it a little because I did like this team last year. I may have them a little underrated. I'll go back and look. But I don't want to bet against them. I know the fans are going to be crazy tonight. Well, no matter what, because they have so much, they have so much invested in this team, and they think they're going to be good.
Of course, we can't forget that crazy losing streak that Detroit did go on before turning it around. And
last year?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean that has to come into play as well. That they will be playing tough from the start of the season, like you said, not to be the laughing stock of the city or even of the league here. So
I made the game higher, but there was money today on the Pistons, went from 5.5 to 4.5. I'm really not interested in laying the favorite here in game 1 because I took 3 points off that home. If I didn't, I'd only make the game 6. And I think tonight's crowd will be a very good crowd and they'll be very boisterous. So I don't think I should have taken that off there. I had to, because my program does it automatically with a 11.5-point difference in the two teams. Indiana's just far better talent wise.
Let's go to the next game here in Atlanta. We know that they were a very fast-paced, high-scoring team. The Hawks were there hosting the Brooklyn Nets. Atlanta -6.5 and total 222.5.
Yeah, this is a game when I bypassed it this morning. I was making a case for the Nets because I always say don't lay points with a bad team. Well, I don't think the Hawks are a very good team. I have them ranked 25th in the NBA, but I have the Nets number 29, and there are only 30 teams in the NBA, so you only really have to follow 150 starters. But they were a big favorite, 8-point favorite at home, and bet down to 7. I know the Nets are not expected to win many games this year, maybe 20. I think the win total is 19.5 in that range. So they're not a good team either, but the Hawks are not a good team. So you hate to lay points with those type of teams. And the line went from 8 to 7.5, but I missed the total. I made the total 238 and it's 223. I know right now Atlanta is my highest scoring team in the NBA. They were from last year. I don't think much changes with how this team plays with Trae Young. And the Brooklyn Nets, with their new head coach, he wants to push the pace. So there you go. I love this game over. It's my biggest play of the day. I made it a 2% play when I say biggest play. 2% play. If I had $1,000, it's a $20 bet.
So that number hasn't gotten away from us too much. It opened 220.5. Now here 222.5. So don't have to go over that 223 anywhere either. So
even a better number here at the South Point, and it's actually one of the better numbers in the market, 222.5. And I do see at the Circa they're up to 223. So I think that game goes up and down. It just all depends on if the Brooklyn Nets can score. So we'll see if they do and they like the new offense. But we know the Hawks are going to push the pace as well. That'll be a high-paced game.
Next one, 2 playoff teams here, Orlando Magic and Miami Heat. They did not face each other, though. Miami laying 2 at home, total 208, because remember, Orlando was knocked out by Cleveland, and Miami had to face Boston right away in that first round.
Yeah, I was worried this is, a state rivalry game, so it is a big game for both teams, and it's normally going to be a bigger game for the weaker team of the two, and that is the Orlando Magic. So they will definitely be up for this game. I made the Heat 4.5. Still love this organization. Love their head coach. I just think that they do a great job from top to bottom. Fundamentally, they're always going to be in it, and they're the better team, slightly better team. Orlando's done a nice job because they have a good nucleus of young players. So they are a good team too. Looking at the power ratings, yeah. I guess Miami's kind of come back to the pack with the talent they have on hand. So they're about an average NBA team. I have them right now, but I do have a lot of respect for them. So I made it 4.5.
That's Miami you're talking about?
Miami Heat, yeah. I've got them average, and I've got Orlando 98, 2 points below average.
In the last few years, they have kind of been average in the regular season, but then you can't count them out for postseason.
Yeah, they get going at the right time when they need to. So, and I think that has a lot to do with. I'm going to take a look here just to make sure because I did so much work. Bam Adebayo's there, Jimmy Butler's there, Tyler Hero's there. Jaime Jaquez, he was the star of the Summer League. Man, oh man, I watched him play, and I had him worth 8 points to the Summer League team. And I could make a case he was worth 20 points.
Wow.
He dominated the NBA Summer League. This guy's going to be a really good NBA player. So they're maybe a little better than I think they are.
Okay, something to look out for. Potentially Miami Heat getting it done here at home. Milwaukee and the Sixers here. The Bucks -3.5, total 223.5. Talk about two teams with high expectations that both got the injury bug right at the wrong time last year in the postseason. Should be a good game for these two. No Embiid, right? And no
Paul George. Yeah, both are out tonight, both with injuries. Chris Middleton is out from Milwaukee tonight as well. So the difference, Embiid and George are worth 8 points to the betting line.
I believe it.
And I was conservative on that. This is Paul George's first year with Philadelphia, so we'll see what they do. They still have some talent around that team. And as you mentioned, big game for both. These two teams will be in the running for the East.
Next up, Cleveland Cavaliers at Toronto. Cavs laying 6.5 on the road, total 225.5. Cleveland had a good run last year as well. Very good defensive team.
Yeah, outstanding defensive club. Again, they're going to be one of the better defensive teams. I made them 3 and 220. There's no RJ Barrett for Toronto tonight. He is worth a couple of points to the betting line. But interesting, this total went up from 220.5 to 224.5, and it is 225 here at the South Point. A lot of money on the over. Not sure why. Maybe if it's Cleveland going to run a little bit more this year, we'll see.
All right, next up, we've got Charlotte Hornets and Houston Rockets. The Rockets -8 at home, total 229.5.
Yeah, another team, Rockets, I have rated below average. I have Charlotte right there with them. So 7 I thought was such a high number. I only made the game 3. I did take 7 for a 1% play with the Charlotte Hornets today. This number is pretty much steady in the market. They're actually even 7.5s out there now. 7 here at the South Point, 7 at Circa.
Curious on what you made this game. The Pelicans laying 6.5 at home to the Chicago Bulls, total 227.5.
Well, question mark Zion Williamson is questionable with an illness. I think he's going to play. And DeJounte Murray, also another guy that's questionable. He's a big player, but Williamson worth at least 4.5 points. I made them 6.5, total 220. This game was bet up. The total went from 222.5 or 221.5 here at the South Point to 228. The number opened 6, bet down to 5.5. And that's probably a little bit of expectations that maybe Williamson won't play while they're taking the points there. But I think the number's about right. I made it 6.5 with Williamson.
Did hear some chatter that he is in the best shape that he has been in yet.
He is in the best
NBA,
shape?
yeah.
And if he could stay healthy, he could be a dominating NBA player.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And has had high expectations since he has been in the league. So we'll see this year. Memphis Grizzlies laying 2.5 on the road against the Utah Jazz, total 228.5.
Yeah, one guy, big time player, Jaren Jackson, is out. He is the rim protector and enforcer and a scorer for Memphis. That hurts them. I made them 5.5, 227.5. They're 3. I like to have a 3-point difference early in the year, and I don't like to bet against the steam. This game opened 4.5, bet down to 3. Here at the South Point, opened 2.5. They opened a much better number without Jackson in the lineup.
Interesting to see, because you're talking about the city, and now Utah has a hockey club that might get this team. And they do have some potential as well. Where do you have them in your power ratings, the Utah Jazz?
Number 25,
okay.
Tied for 25th with the Atlanta Hawks, 96 rating, 4 points below average.
All right. Phoenix Suns at the Clippers. Suns -5 in this one, total 225.5.
Yeah, again, I talked about Kawhi being out. I didn't factor this in. I wanted to look at my numbers to see if I did take him out. I don't believe I did. It's surprising the Clippers were going to be a player in the
West.
In the West, but in the last couple of years they have been, but injuries have torn them apart. So they're projected to only win 35 games this year. That's pretty bad. So I'm confident in my rating at a 98.5. That is with Kawhi, and again, he's worth about 5 points. I didn't put that on my sheet. I'm going to have to correct that after the show, and I may not till about noon. I'm going to go through all these injuries and update these on my sheet and my power ratings to get this. I did so much work on this yesterday and was so tired last night. I just didn't get to the point where I could do all of the injuries. I knew that Embiid and George were out, and I knew Williamson was questionable, and I did know Leonard was out, but I forgot all about it and forgot to factor that in. So I would have Phoenix about the same, about 5.5, 6. They are really excited about their point guard, Tyus Jones. Now Booker can move to shooting guard, that's what he does. They're going to score. They're going to be a high-scoring basketball team. That could be a very high-scoring game. I may not have made the total high enough at 226. It is 224. They're going to be fun to watch this year, Phoenix. They're going to go up and down.
We were so distracted by football and hockey starting and all of this. We missed a great number here to win the West. Phoenix Suns open 20-1, and it is now bet down to 7-1. So, I mean, they had high expectations last year. They were looking like one of the best teams in the West. Just ran into a really hot Minnesota Timberwolves team in the first round. Actually got swept by them in that first round. But Phoenix Suns, they've got a lot of players. You're talking about Booker. I was shocked to see how much playing time he got for the USA team, but for good reason. So now if he is playing in that other role, I think that could be very beneficial for them. And KD there, of course, trying to win a championship as well.
No, they're going to be very good. I may even have them a little underrated, was maybe a little conservative on them. So I watched them the other night against the Lakers in a preseason game and was very impressed. And I was very impressed. You know, they have a new coach too, Mike Budenholzer, also a really good NBA head coach. So I think he's going to upgrade that team. I'll have to take a look at them. What's the San Antonio Spurs to win the West?
That is a great question. Spurs, they open 50-1. They are 40-1.
So, you know, no surprise that came down. Do you have win totals in front of you?
I don't have win totals.
I think their win total is about 35.5. I think they may win 45 games. So there's one for you, win total. San Antonio over. Wembanyama's got to obviously stay healthy, but he is one of the best players in the NBA at 20 years old.
Right.
He is a force. Now a year experience under his belt, he is going to have a big season. And if he's healthy, this team wins 45 games, and who knows what happens come playoff time. That's why I asked about the numbers. That was 50-1 to win the West?
It is 40-1 now.
Just to win the West, not to win the NBA title.
Just to win the West.
I've got to make a bet on that today myself and get some San Antonio futures going.
I like it. I've actually heard other people kind of looking at the Spurs, so I'm surprised that it is still that high of a number. Golden State Warriors, last game on the board, 6-point favorite on the road, 221.5 in Portland, taking on the Trailblazers.
Yeah, I don't even want to do that. I'm so excited about the Suns over tonight. Now I got to get down on that, which I didn't. And well, this game I like over as well, Alex. I made this total 230.5, and still I think the Warriors have firepower. They're still, you know, they're right about an average NBA team. They're playing against a Portland team who's rated last in the NBA. And I think Portland's win total very low, 20.5 wins they're expected this year. And again, I said Brooklyn 19.5. It's amazing. We talk about parity in the NFL, that they really don't have that great parity in the NBA. When you have these teams only expected to win 19 or 20 games, that's pretty ridiculous that low. But I can understand that. They are my lowest rated team. And Golden State, you know, no more Klay Thompson. No longer with the team. He's now in Dallas. But they still got Steph Curry. And Steph we saw what he did in the Olympics. That worries me, though, with him wearing down a little bit later in the season.
I feel like there was a nice break there from when the Olympics finished to now. But he did play such a big role there. And Steph Curry, of course, coached that team to a gold medal. You brought up Klay Thompson. I was already thinking hockey because Logan Thompson is going to be the starting goalie for Washington tonight. One game on the board. It is a back-to-back. The Flyers and the Capitals played yesterday. The Capitals got the win there, and they're on a nice little win streak, Washington is, and they have two really good goalies. So this might be a team to look out for. A little bit older, right? Some of the skaters there, but right now they're playing very good hockey. They are minus 135 was the opener number. And total 6 in this one. Now they some money coming in on Washington, minus 140.
Yeah, and I agree with that. The way these two teams are playing, we know Washington's the better team. They are 4-1, 4-game winning streak. Philadelphia has lost 5 in a row. It's a price that it's extremely low. I mean, you have to factor in the revenge factor from yesterday. That Philadelphia lost on their home ice, but they're not playing well. I think you get the same type of game tonight, even though we have backup goalies in. And actually not backup goalies. Washington has the better goalie.
That's right.
They went with their number one. Philly went with their number one yesterday. They're with their number 2. And Washington will go with their number 1, who I think Logan Thompson is. So I think it's once again advantage Washington Capitals again today. Bet them right back.
I'm with you. Let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to go heavy college football. We do have 2 games tonight. We've got a few games we want to talk about going into the weekend, and maybe even a little NFL. We'll talk about some of the lines and some of our lines that we made. But We'll be right back. Quick 2-minute break. This is Sports by the Book.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south of the border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Welcome back, everybody. Sports by the Book, live from the South Point studio. I'm Alex White, here with Kenny White, taking you through today's action. We are going to get into some college football. Thank you, everybody who is in the chat. Nick S., Dean Hilt, Risen Wave. I'm sure he has some plays coming up for us here. And Tommy Green in here as well has a question about hockey teams on 0 days rest. Win list often against teams with more rest. Thoughts on the Flyers and the Caps. So is asking about tonight. Tommy Green had a good bet yesterday, actually, on the Tampa Bay Lightning, who was playing on back-to-back, and they did come through and win. Frozen Frenzy, a lot of fun yesterday. We'll bring that up really quick. 98 total goals, 99.5 at most shops, 100.5 here. Hopefully, our friend Frank Nicotero did not make it to the window because he was looking for that over. But going to college football here. We have a new thing. This is new this year, Dad. And every year at the South Point, when NFL starts, they do a jackpot parlay card where you just have to bet the winner, $5 a card. You can do as many as you want. Minimum of a $25,000 winner or pot goes to the winner. Now they're doing it with Rivalry Week here for college football. So you can get these in now. It's Saturday, November 30th, and all of these great matchups. As you're going down, it seems easy, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Ohio State's probably going to beat Michigan. UNLV, much better than Nevada this year. Then you run into Kansas State and Iowa State. That's a tough one.
And then Louisville and Kentucky, another tough one.
Yep.
Arizona State, Arizona. So yeah, there's a lot of good really good matchups on the card, but just pick the winner. Love it. You pick every game on the card and no points, no handicaps, ties win. $25,000 guaranteed jackpot.
Frank asked me how many I would have, and I said a minimum of 10.
10 cards?
Yeah. But when we talked to Colucci, who runs the sportsbook at the Rampart, before the season started, he said some people would do like 100 cards.
Oh, yeah.
For the NFL one.
Right. Oh,
well, that makes my odds not good for my 10.
Right, not as good. But, yeah, they're round robin. They're going in with Ohio State over Michigan, UNLV over, like the ones you said. They're going in with those that are for sure winners. But there's a lot of tough games on the card. Texas at Texas A&M, another really tough one. Arkansas, Missouri may be difficult. Virginia Tech, another tough one. So there's no real gimmies on this card. There may be a couple that may be double-digit point spreads, but
you
not
think,
many.
But still, I mean, in-state rivalry like UNLV Nevada.
Right.
I mean, UNLV could be on this run that they are on this year, and Nevada's playing competitive.
They are.
That game means the most to them.
Right.
This year.
You're right.
So
those type of games are so big for the opponent. So yeah, you have to, take that into consideration.
But it's a lot of fun. $5 for a card, worth.
I'm going to look at it.
Coming in to put in a few, that's for sure. And I know NFL got way over that 25,000 because as many cards that are filled out, that's just the guaranteed. So come down to South Point, get in a few of these jackpot parlay cards for rivalry week. John just jumped in our chat as well. Good morning. We're going to hop over. We're going to talk about the 2 college football games on the board tonight. And I was watching Bet the Gambit this morning on YouTube. You can find that every morning at 7 a.m. by Kenny White. And we're breaking down this Liberty-Kennesaw State game. At first, you think there's really no way to bet this game. Kennesaw State has not won a game yet this year. They are pretty far down, maybe 134 of the FBS teams.
133.
133.
Kent State, the only team lower in a power rating than Kennesaw State.
And Liberty comes into this game undefeated, but they have not looked all that impressive yet this year. They're 26-point favorite on the road, total 47, but you did find a way that you like and an angle to bet this.
Yeah, Liberty 13-1 last year. Jamie Caldwell in his first year, Chadwell, is a really good football coach. He coached at Coastal Carolina, 39-22 there, Charleston Southern, and North Carolina Greensboro. So does a great job. But this year's team was expected to win Conference USA and maybe get an outside look at getting a bid in the top 12. I have them the 62nd best team in college football.
Wow.
So I can't see how they could be in the top 12. Whoever's number 13 would be a 10-point favorite on a neutral against this team. So they are very good, 107.5. But again, I just don't think they're that powerful. Now, Kennesaw State, an 83, is 24 points lesser than Liberty. Now, Liberty has played the 134th schedule so far. They have played the easiest schedule in college football, and they are 1-4 ATS.
Wow.
They have vastly underachieved, and I don't know if this is a game they get excited about. Remember, Kennesaw State is an FBS school that they've only been in the FBS 2 years.
Right.
They came from the lower division, the FCS. They've got 8 wins in their 2 years, but none of them are against FBS teams. They have yet to beat an FBS team. They've got a really good head coach, Brian Bohannon, and he's going to improve this program. It's going to take more time. But again, big difference between these two teams. I'm looking at maybe taking the points now because Liberty's only played 1 game in the last month. That's it. And it was an overtime game at home against FIU. So this team is like still in preseason form since they haven't had a chance to play. But the play I came up with was under in Kennesaw State. They are an under team. They're 5-1 under. Liberty has got a very good defense, and Kennesaw State's the weakest offense in college football. Their last game, they scored 5 points. The defense almost outscored the offense. So I liked under in Kennesaw State, under 10.5 on a team total, but I'm looking to take Kennesaw State plus the points too. Kind of a backup for me. If I don't win the team total and they do score more than that, maybe I cover with the spread. So I am going to take the points with Kennesaw State because of the fact Liberty's only played that 1 game in a month.
Is that because their App State game was canceled or postponed?
Yep.
I believe it was just canceled, right?
It was postponed. I'm not sure if they're making that up or not. They probably will have to. Very
intriguing. I've watched a few of these Liberty games. They really have been very underwhelming. And 13-1, if Kennesaw State, the 133rd team in the FBS, could pull off the upset. But that's really throwing darts there. Let's go to the next game on the board. Middle Tennessee State, Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State, big favorite, 20.5 at home here, total 63.
Yeah, this is Rich Rod. I've mentioned several times he will run up scores. He always has. He got off to a slow start. They lost their first 3 games of the year, Coastal Carolina, at Louisville, and at Eastern Michigan. But they've beaten 3 really weak teams. Southern Miss, who just fired their coach. At Kennesaw State, we just talked about, they beat 63-24. And then New Mexico State, they beat 54-13. They were off last week. So They've power rated out performance to 100. I have them at 99, so I feel like I know how good they are. And was that last game? I do have Liberty out rushing, doubling up Kennesaw State in their rushing numbers, though. 215 to 110 in that last game. So they are going to win the rushing battle, and those usually when that happens, it's a 70% cover.
Wow.
But again, they have only played one game in a month, so maybe that doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't. So Middle Tennessee State is a 92.5. I only had Jacksonville State a 10 point favorite in this game. It does scare me about running up scores for Jacksonville State and Rich Rod. So I did stay off this game. I didn't bet it. I feel like betting a bad team in Middle Tennessee, but they beat Kennesaw last week at home 14-5. Kennesaw's the next to worst team in college football. So when you can only beat the next to worst team by only 9 at home, you know you're not very good. They have power rated out to a 87. And again, why I talked myself out of this morning on Bet the Gambit, when I looked at the last 3 games that Jacksonville State has played, they've performance rating is a 103. So if I just, go up the performance ratings, a 103 for Jacksonville State in the last 3 and an 87 for Middle Tennessee, that's a 16-point edge right there.
Right.
And the line's about 20.
And they're at home.
I'm probably a little too low. I know I'm too low at 10, but we'll see how this plays out. I think there's much better games to bet on, so I passed this game tonight.
For myself as well, I did make Jacksonville State a 19-point favorite here at home, giving them full home field advantage, and then I made the total 60, but as you talked about running up the score, I'm not interested in jumping in on an under here.
I made it 66. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
And it was bet up. This total opened up a lot lower. We'll see here what it opened up at the South Point. What Chris Andrews and team opened it. 64. Bet down to 63.5. 63.5 is the market. I know it opened up 60.5 downtown.
Wow.
And that would have been a 5.5 point edge for me, but I did not get that. I was not able to bet ahead of time. This week is running behind in time. Hopefully in this week, I'll have my college football done that I can get back to betting early.
That would have been me. I would have opened up a bad number downtown. That's why I'm not a bookmaker yet.
Well, who knows if it's a bad number or not till the game's over with, but you always want to have, closing line value. That doesn't cash tickets, but when you know you're getting closing line value, you're going to win. So in the long run, you'll win. But this is a game that, remember, if Rich Rod likes to run scores up, see what the score is at maybe halftime, and it could be a spot that it's maybe an overplay. Middle Tennessee is 3-2 over their last 5 games, and Jacksonville State is 5-1 to the over on the season. And they put up a lot of points their last 3. 44 against Southern Miss, 63 against Kennesaw, and 54 against New Mexico State.
Yes. Well, it is a slower day for us here at the South Point Studio. Race Day Las Vegas with Ralph Soroka already was here. They already did their show. If you want to go back and watch it on YouTube, you can. We're the last show today. Tomorrow, though, Jeff Parles will be back in the morning at 9 a.m. I know I'm going off on a little...
No punchlines?
And punchlines today at noon. I'm sorry. They do have punchlines.
You scared me.
I was thinking Sports by the Book schedule, leading to there is 2 football games tomorrow night and, of course, a Thursday night football game. But our Sports by the Book 3 p.m. show, the Football Frenzy, will break those down because we're going to skip over those and go to some Friday and some Saturday games here. So, yes, I'm sorry if I confused you. Punchlines today at noon. Go to Punchlines FN for that. Tomorrow, very big day because we have Race Day Las Vegas. We do have our show with Jeff Parles at 9 a.m., Sports by the Book. Then we have Gone Racing. And then we have a Football Frenzy at 3 p.m. So, but there are some good games tomorrow. Syracuse, Pittsburgh, very intriguing. Georgia Southern, Old Dominion. Georgia Southern coming off a big win over James Madison. That is our 3rd week in a row betting Georgia Southern. I think we're going to stay off of them this week, see what happens, and make sure there's not a letdown there. And then a big NFL game with the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams. Couple games that were requested for us that we are going to skip ahead. Rotation number is 175, 176, and this is Missouri, Alabama. Remember, we talked about it on Monday. There is no undefeated team left in the SEC. So these 2 come into this one. Bama with 2 losses, Missouri with 1 loss against Texas A&M. Bama still 13.5 point favorite in this one, and the total is 55.
Amazing that Kalen DeBoer already, the talk is they want him out. He hasn't lasted very long at Alabama.
That's not a good move, right? Give him
games.
some time.
I had heard that it would be $70 million to buy him out this early. I don't know. Do they have that kind of money? Maybe they do. That would be amazing if Kalen DeBoer was able to get a $70 million payout just to leave and go sit home on his couch. I'm sure he would get back into coaching somewhere. He did a great job with Washington.
Yep.
Again, I would not have hired Kalen DeBoer at anywhere, a bigger school. I would have waited and let him get his roots in. He was a head coach for 2 years at Fresno. So obviously it wasn't his players. He did well. And then he got the Washington job and he was there for 2 years. He went 25-3, but again, it wasn't with his players. And he had a transfer quarterback, the Michael Penix Jr. from Indiana, who played for him. And he's in the NFL. Michael Penix just played last week for the Falcons. He's in the NFL. These guys that are getting jobs because of their players is really wrong. I mean, people make big mistakes. I would only hire a coach if I was in an SEC, if I was an SEC AD or president and was hiring a football coach. You'd have to be a head coach somewhere for 5 years. I would have to see that you built that program, you sustained that program, and that you are developing players and your program continued to get better every year. Kalen DeBoer wasn't anywhere to show that in his short time as a head coach. So I think that was a really bad move.
It's tough though. I mean, who would they have gotten? They can't get Kirby Smart. He's at Georgia. He's not leaving there.
Oh yeah, but there's plenty of coaches out there. I mean, you could go to the FCS. I don't care. If a guy's in the FCS and he's shown that he can win, you're getting a coach that has sustained a program or built a program, and that's what you really want to look for. You don't go after someone you could have gone after Kurt Siganetti, who was at James Madison for 5 years and went 52-9. He showed that in 5 years you have different multiple recruiting classes, you have different quarterbacks, you don't just go off of. He had Michael Penix Jr. and is why he won football games. He also had a very good team. He did coach that team up very well, but now there's red flags, obviously, at Alabama. His team is always going to get up. You and I could get Alabama up when they're playing Georgia because the players get themselves up for that game. They got themselves so sky high and they come from behind, win after they lost the lead. They couldn't wake up the next week, and that's the coach's fault.
Well, and we're seeing some similarities here, right, with this Alabama team, just like we saw with Washington last year, because their biggest concern was their defense, because they could put a ton of points on the board, but they'd also give up a lot of points, and that's what we are seeing from Alabama in the last few weeks. But now they're laying 13.5 with a pretty good Mizzou team here, and total 55. I made it right on the number. I have it. I actually have it 17 here for Alabama and the total 55.
Yeah, I have it 15.5, but that's with a 100% Jalen Milroe. And I'm hearing he's not going to be 100%. If you just took off, he's worth 6 points. If you took off 10% of his rating, that's a 3-point drop off. So I don't know how effective he will be. Again, there's just so much talk. There's pressure now on this Alabama program with 2 losses that they cannot afford to lose again. They will not be in the 12-team playoff, that's for sure. So they have pressure. This is a major game for Missouri. I don't think they've ever beaten Alabama. Looking back at the scores, they haven't played Bama in a while. So I don't really have any back data on that. But I do like Eli Drinkwitz for Missouri. He's done a nice job, and he's got a good quarterback in Brady Cook. So this will be a good game. I think Missouri can hang around here because of the pressure.
We need to look up 2 things then, because Brady Cook did leave the game against Auburn and then come back at the end to help lead them to a 21-17 victory, which they were very close to losing that game against Auburn and Hugh Freeze. But the other thing is that I'm concerned about is when we saw Missouri against a ranked team, and that was Texas A&M, it wasn't even close. Texas A&M got out to a lead, and then they ended up winning 41-10. That's my concern here with how good Missouri has looked against these lower level teams. I mean, Buffalo 38-0, Murray State 51-0. Boston College played them really close. Vandy took them to overtime. So that's my concern. We had to check on both quarterbacks, Jalen Milroe and Brady Cook, make sure both of them are playing. But we might have a good opportunity. I made the total 55, but you made it higher, right? This could be some points scored if both quarterbacks are going.
I made it 62, and Brady Cook's going to go. He's got a sprained ankle that he's been playing on. He will play. Jalen Milroe banged up. Not sure what his injury is, but because he's not even on the injury list, but I'm hearing that he's banged up and he's not 100%. So he will go too. Missouri, I have 34th best offense, 41st best defense, 20th overall, 116 rating. Their performance ratings only come up a 108. So they haven't performed up to my level of how good I think they are. Will this be the first time they do that? Maybe. I still have Alabama 5th on offense, 8th on defense, and the 5th best team overall in the country, a 128 rating. Their performance rating a 125. It's all about Kalen DeBoer. Can he get these guys motivated, or will the pressure get to Alabama? I don't think there's any pressure on Missouri. They're not expected to win this game. So I think they come in and play a good game.
Okay, so you are leaning to taking the points here.
Yeah, I am. And I wanted to see what what the current line is. Do you have that in front of you?
It is 13.5.
Okay. It's, I'm right around that with my number. So I'm not playing it, but there has been some money well, here at the South Point, they opened 14.5, bet down to 13.5. I can't take 13.5, but this is kind of one of those games. I always say, trust your process. You make your own betting numbers, you make your own line, you compare it to the betting board, and you make your bets. There are certain games I've been told by really good handicappers that when you have a feel, sometimes the number may not match betting it, but you want to bet it because of certain reasons. And this is a reason for me is Alabama and the pressure that they have on them now.
Well, you just did it last week with Texas and Georgia. Your number said Texas or leaned that way.
Yes, it did.
But
I didn't bet them.
You did not bet them, and you could have taken the 5 points with a very good Georgia team who won outright.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done that though because I made the game 9. I just didn't make the bet on Texas, and then when it was bet up, I was going to probably lay 3.5 if that's what it stayed at. I was hoping it went to 3 because of Georgia and their popularity, but it never did. And when it went up, I said, I'm not laying. Texas will celebrate like they won the Super Bowl if they win by 1. So I'm not laying the points with the favorite in that game. And my number said to bet it, but I didn't.
Well, let's go to another very intriguing game that somebody asked us to take a look at, and that is Penn State at Wisconsin. This wouldn't have been as intriguing, but 3 weeks ago, Wisconsin really started playing good football and started against Purdue. And then we've just seen it. They just beat Northwestern 23-3 at Northwestern. So here we are at home, Wisconsin getting 6.5 points, total 47.5.
I sure would love to have that Alabama game over again. Alabama at Wisconsin, where I took 2 touchdowns and I lost 42-10. Don't think that would happen if they played again this week. Luke Fickell's second year now at Wisconsin. It's going to one more year. Next year, we will all be talking about Wisconsin in the top 10. Luke Fickell's just a great coach. He was at Cincinnati for 6 years. And in his 6 years, he took them to the national championship. He was in the top 4. They were that dominating of a program. So that's the kind of coach I would hire at an SEC school. Well, he's been hired at a Big 12 school in Wisconsin, and he will make Wisconsin once again one of the best schools in the country. They've played the 18th toughest schedule. They were 0-4 ATS their first 4, and then they turned it on, and they've covered 3 straight. It was Purdue, at Rutgers, at Northwestern. Nobody great in that part of their schedule, but I see them getting better. Their performance rating a 129. That puts them in the top 5. That's how they performed the last 3 weeks. Penn State has underachieved. They are 2-4 ATS. They played the 49th schedule in the country. I love Wisconsin here. Penn State had to travel to USC. They won last week in an overtime game. Was it last week or was it the week before that?
That was the week before.
So they did have time off. So they're all right. We got one more game that I wanted to go over. All right, so you really can't hold that against them. And I didn't use that against them. That would have just been a talking point. But the last time these two teams played was in 2021 at Wisconsin. Penn State won 16-10. Now, Luke Fickell wasn't there, but a lot of the Wisconsin players that are there know that, and that's probably been posted in the locker room. I love Luke Fickell. I think he has the team headed in the right direction. Penn State has just been getting by. They're underperforming at a 121.5 performance rating. I think this game's close, and it's one of those games where the visitor is the better team, but Wisconsin's got such a great crowd, I'm not taking anything off that number.
I'm with you. I made it 3.5, but I do have Penn State a little bit lower than others on my top 10 even, and now AP poll, they are here at number 3, which is a huge bump up for this Penn State team, but we did talk about Drew Aller, now his second year here at Penn State, and he has looked much better than he did last year as a true freshman. But yeah, they could have lost that USC game. So I think this one will be pretty tight and physical down to the end as well. Maybe a 3-point game here.
Wisconsin's battle tested, and they've had to go to their second string quarterback. I loved it that Tyler Van Dyke came in from Miami. And when I first saw him as a freshman, I said, this guy's playing in the NFL. But Braden Locke, who played a lot last year for Fickell, is now the starting quarterback. And, I've already factored in the drop-off there. This is Drew Aller on the road against a really good defense. I have Wisconsin defense number 23 in the country. I think they're a top 25 team now. I think they'll be a top 10 team next year with Luke Fickell as the head coach.
So that was for Jim D. He wanted that Wisconsin-Penn State game. And Dean Hilt had asked for Washington and Indiana. I did not highlight that one. Were you prepared for that one? Did I tell you that? Okay.
And you know what? I think it's a tough spot for Indiana. Curtis Rourke, their starting quarterback, is out.
Yep.
Tavon Jackson will be the starter. He is the younger brother of Chase Jackson Davis, who played for Indiana basketball and now is with the Golden State Warriors. That's his younger brother. He'll be the starting quarterback. He has experience. He played a lot last year. He originally went to Tennessee, very highly rated kid out of high school. So he is a top quarterback, but I have a 4.5-point drop-off from Rourke to Jackson. And Washington has had extra time to prepare for this game. This is going to be a tough game. I think this game goes down to the wire. I did bet it over because Indiana, they've been a high-scoring affair all year. They're 6-1 to the over, and Washington has gone over their last 2 games. But I think this is going to be a close game. Indiana's going to be in for a battle here. Washington will be really ready for this game.
Okay, and total sitting there at 53, not too high in this one. I know that JR was asking about Indiana overs as well, so you kind of just talked about both of those in one. Somebody did ask, and that was Dean Hilt as well, look ahead, which I know you have your numbers for the entire season. If you can find your paper or your book here, because Penn State, Ohio State is November 2nd, which is next Saturday. So Dean Hilt was curious on a look ahead for that, which I do have the football numbers.
Yeah, that's, and the nice thing about my power ratings that I have the scores done for the entire year, as you mentioned. So let me pull up. I got to pull up Penn State, Ohio State. I have Penn State a 2-point favorite at home, total of 57. When you shake it out and I adjust to what the final score is, I use football scores. I have Penn State 28-27 instead of 26.
Yes.
And instead of 29 for Penn State, because those are numbers that don't hit. So I do a projected number that is a football number that I've got a better chance of hitting it, right on the nose. But 28-27, I have Penn State winning by 1 at home.
Wow. Are there any look-aheads already for football?
Penn State's going to be a double-digit favorite in every game the rest of the season, home against Washington, at Purdue, at Minnesota, and home against Maryland. So these next 2 games are Penn State's biggest battles to go undefeated, at Wisconsin this week and home against Ohio State.
Should be very, very interesting. I don't think they can look ahead and look past Wisconsin either, being on the road, even though they do have Ohio State up next, who they really want to beat. I'm
going to use my power ratings, the projected final scores for the card, the Jackpot Parlay card that you can tell everybody about that they have here at the South Point, because I'm going to go through all those games, and I have already got my numbers made on every one of those games.
So that's perfect. And everybody else who wants to come in and join as well, Jackpot Parlay card here, college rivalry week. Arizona State, Arizona, Alabama, Auburn. You just have to pick the winner. You don't have to bet against the spread. $5. You can fill out as many as you want. That was a perfect segue. We did have one NFL request, but we are not going to get to that today. It is 10 o'clock. They do have to turn the set over and get ready for punchlines, but you will be back hosting Sports by the Book Friday remotely. So can you please cover the Buffalo Bills and Seattle Seahawks game on Friday morning?
Yes, I will. I will definitely cover that game, and maybe one more NFL game. I'll try to get a couple of NFL games in. Mainly it's all college when I do it on Friday, but with no Friday. I know there's 3 Friday night football games this week, so I'll cover those 3 Friday night games, and then I'll cover at least the Bills game. Listen,
you said that earlier too. That's kind of a disgrace. This is the biggest game of UNLV football.
Yes, it is.
On Friday, hosting Boise State. I shouldn't say that because at Allegiant last year, they did host the championship game against Boise, but this is revenge.
Oh boy, is it ever.
And it's going to be a great game. I have no bets in that game. I don't plan on betting it. I did make Boise a 3.5-point favorite on the road against UNLV. That's where the number has moved to now. And that total it's really high. I don't even think we can go over that total.
Well,
I believe
I'm probably going to be taking UNLV in this game. The fact that with that revenge factor, and I love what
I didn't add that
Odom
in.
has done with the program. Genty for Boise State's one of the best running backs in the country, and he's going to put up numbers. But UNLV is going to be able to stay with them in the rushing yard category.
Yes,
that entire game. So that is a Friday game. I will talk about that game on Friday. Sports by the Book, 9 a.m. But betting line right now, 3 across the board everywhere, 65 the total.
Wow. So that 3.5, I saw that earlier, but people grab that very quickly.
There may be 1 in the market, but I doubt if that's there.
So money line? Are you trying to find that? Are you going to wait for a 3.5?
I'm going to take 3. I don't do a lot of money line stuff. When they say sprinkle, I do about 10% of my normal straight bet.
Okay.
On a money line, unless I really am going well and I have a good feeling that team that it's worth it to take those. I like taking the points because you have 2 ways to win.
That's it for us for today. We've got to go because we've got to make a bet on the San Antonio Spurs to win the Western Conference. Also, some NBA that we gave you that you can join us. Some bets for tonight's action. And then tomorrow, Jeff Parles will be back here at 9 a.m. at the desk. Kenny White will be back on Friday, 9 a.m. as well. Myself and Jeff Parles will be back on Saturday, 8 a.m., an hour earlier, to get ready for all college football games. Everybody, behind the scenes, thank you so much with Ryan and Sean and Vinny, Vince and Jerry. For Kenny White, I'm Alex White. This is Sports by the Book. We'll be back again next Monday, 9 a.m. here on Sports by the Book.